Hello, everyone. My name is Natasha Belfort, and this is Becoming Her Anyways. So today, I thought of a really interesting topic because I think that there is, unfortunately, quite a fine line between narcissism and self-love. Now, in this society, I think it's very sad because self-love is often mistaken for narcissism. And I think that in this episode, I kind of wanted to just talk about it because I do think it's interesting. So narcissism, defined by, Google, Oxford Dictionary, it's an excessive interest in or admiration of oneself and one's physical appearance. Now, that's actually quite interesting because, for example, I would not say myself that makes a narcissist. Now, there is a bigger definition here. So it says, in psychology, it's selfishness involving a sense of entitlement, a lack of empathy, and a need for admiration as characterizing a personality type. That, to me, is narcissism. Lacking empathy. That is a huge narcissistic trait. Listen, I feel like it's sad in this society because why is it that loving yourself is so horrible? Why is it that we can love our friends, family, our dogs, but we can't love ourselves? But we do the most for ourselves. We're the ones who are there for ourselves 24/7. Why can't we love ourselves? Why is it narcissism? It's interesting. This definition actually has surprised me. Excessive interest in or admiration of oneself, not and one's physical appearance. I suppose to an extent, this can be seen as like narcissism in the sense of like it's a toxic thing. I think that that's actually really interesting. Okay, in my opinion, narcissism is when you give to yourself by taking away from other people unjustly. That is real narcissism. I always think of the difference like this. So say, for example, my best friend, she needs help, right? And I'm not really like in the mood to, go out. But she's going through something and, she's had an argument or something and she's crying and she needs me because, we are close friends and she's been there for me before and, our friendship is very well established. A narcissistic thing for me to do would be to not go and see her if I could physically, because obviously that's selfish. Like I'm giving to myself by taking away from her, because in the same situation, she would come to me if I needed her. But a difference between that would be narcissism, right? But then self-love would have been, for example, say she says, let's go and get our nails done. Now, I don't want to get my nails done because I don't want to spend the money. And, it's just not in the cards for me right now. I already have my nails done. And honestly, at the moment, like I'm just a bit drained. Like I don't really want to go out, right? So I say to her, no, I'm sorry. I don't want to do that. That's self-love. Now, people could say that's selfish, but I don't think there's anything wrong with being a little bit selfish. Like there's nothing wrong with, giving to yourself a bit. There's nothing wrong with that. We are human. We are all humans. Yes, obviously, it's lovely to be kind and considerate, but we don't need to stretch ourselves indefinitely just for the liking of other people. I mean, being a people pleaser is one of the worst things that you can be because you will never have any self-respect and no one will ever respect you. If I knew someone who would do everything I asked, I would think they would too. I would think, why has this person not got any, self-respect? Like I'm constantly walking over their boundaries and they want me to like them so they don't say anything. And I think that is, that's not self-love, obviously. So I think self-love is just, it's so important, but I do see why it's confusing because when I was growing up, I was also quite confused about to what extent is something self-love and, narcissism, I think that narcissism is when you are becoming toxic by depriving other people. Like, for example, I don't think me saying to people, I think I'm good looking, I think I'm pretty, is narcissistic. I think that, who wants to say that's narcissistic? People who are insecure about their own looks, because they don't want you to be secure. They don't want you to think you're beautiful. People who also benefit from you thinking that you're ugly, they don't want you to be beautiful either, and they'll call you narcissist. They'll call you a narcissist. Sorry, I got so passionate there for a second. Honestly, I think that we should all be a little bit selfish at some point in our lives. Like, I think it's better for a relationship, it's boundaries, If someone says no to things that they don't want to do, then they'll respect you more. They'll like you more. For example, if I say to my friend, like, let's go out and she just doesn't want to or she doesn't have money or, whatever, and she says no, she's going to like me way more than if she'd said yes, just for my own benefit. Like, guys, selfishness is not always narcissism. Yes, obviously, sometimes it is. Having a lack of empathy, though, that is real narcissism. And that's also actually a symptom of narcissistic personality disorder, where the person only sees things from their own view and they don't have any, I don't want to say don't have any empathy because that's the definition, but they don't feel for other people, They only want what they want and no one else's needs matter. I feel like, for example, the Wizard Liz, she talks about how people called her a narcissist. And I think that's so sad. Because listen, I understand that out of context, her videos can seem a little bit provoking. I understand but anything out of context can also be provoking. Listen, I have been a follower of her since I was quite young. I don't even know, in my teens, right? And she was amazing to me. People say she promotes being like a escort, but she doesn't. Yes, she talks about how she likes to be, sport in a relationship. And yes, she goes for successful men, but that's because that's her preference. And who the hell is anyone to say that she's a narcissist because she wants a man that provides? If you don't want a man that provides, that's fine. She's not saying that you have to have one. She literally has specifically said, if you don't want that, that's fine. It's not my life. The people who get upset with her, the people who believe that they don't deserve it, the people who believe that they can't get it and they hate her because they think, how dare you ask for it? Well, I don't believe I'm worthy, It's so interesting how people call Liz a narcissist because all her videos talk about being loving and kind and generous. And yes, she talks about don't allow people to disrespect you and don't, overextend yourself for everyone. But yes, you should be a loving person. You should be a nice person. You should be kind to your partner. I think that people often hate on those that they see above them. Guys, this is a big theory that I have because honestly, why would I waste my time hating on someone who I didn't see as a threat? You wouldn't. Generally speaking, I wouldn't try to minimize someone else's achievements if they weren't greater than my own. I think, guys, we have to realize is that narcissism is something where someone is going out of their way to humiliate, hurt, and take advantage of the people around them. Self-love is literally the opposite of this. Self-love is when you love yourself, when you pour into yourself. You know how I always talk about insecure people and how they want to bring you down with them? People who love themselves, they will bring you up. They will support you. They will be there for you. They will love you. They will listen to you because they love themselves. They don't have any reason to be toxic to you, to bring you down. Guys, loving yourself is the answer. It is the answer to everything. If you guys thought about how world leaders, they're so insecure. I mean, for example, Donald Trump, his niece talks about how he would sit in his office every morning going through all the papers of what everyone had said about him. That's what a narcissist would do. But someone with self-love would go, okay, they said this about me. And what? And what? This person said I'm ugly. This person said this person said that. And what? I love myself. For example, if someone literally came to me and started emotionally abusing me, I would think, damn, that person has something wrong with him. Guys, you know what I always say? For example, if I'm walking down the street and I bump into a man who has just won the lottery, do you think that he's going to start screaming at me and cry and, swear at me? No, because he just fucking won the lottery. He's not going to care about me. But if, say, for example, I bump into someone who has, just had a messy divorce or they've had a terrible day, don't you think that person is way more likely to lash out at me and take it out on me? That can teach you so much about life, guys. People who are miserable, they treat you like shit. People who are happy, they treat you amazingly well. Guys, when you're in a good mood, you're more likely to be kind to your parents and your siblings. Obviously, you guys should be kind to them, but you know what I mean. They're less likely to annoy you because it's all internal. Okay? Back to my original point, self-love and narcissism is so different. And people have often told me that I'm a narcissist, in the sense of whenever I would say oh, I like the way I look, my mum would, not in a serious way, but they kind of bring that word about. And I would have to explain, you don't know what a narcissist is. A narcissist is someone who is trying to take advantage of you and trying to use you and and who doesn't care about your experiences or your feelings. That's what a true narcissist is. Okay? So honestly, guys, I think that's very interesting. I'm glad that I've had this discussion because this was definitely one of my topics. I just want to say thank you so much for listening. My name is Natasha Belfer and this is Becoming Her Anyways.